Hello class, and welcome to this Friday the 13th NES walkthrough right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Briggins. I'm your instructor, Professor Briggins, and forgive me while I get on my soapbox for 2 seconds over this game. This game has the stale, lazy, uninformed, and just plain wrong reputation of being not only bad, but one of the worst games for the NES. Look, I get it. The gaming nostalgia talking heads needed something to crap on because it's funny, and, at some point, folks decided this was a bad game. And thinking Friday the 13th is a bad game isn't even a new idea. I remember having some generic NES video game guide back in the day which tackled dozens of games, and they had a whole section devoted to ranking games, and they ranked this amongst the worst video games ever made. And again, I get it. They drop you into the game with no clue of what to do, where to go, or how to play. The sole tip they give you before you get into the game isn't even accurate. And it's easy to get confused at first as to how getting around the map works. And the first music you hear once you're in the game is a laughably repetitive 5 or so notes. So at first blush, yeah, this game can feel like hot garbage. But I argue that anyone who labels it as such doesn't know how to play the game. Now, let me quickly follow that up by saying I hate people who say get good. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying watch this Friday the 13th NES walkthrough to see how beatable and fun this game can be if you know 1 or 2 things about it, and then give it a shot yourself and see how you feel. Let's actually talk difficulty right quick and handicap this game. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. So not the hardest, but certainly not the easiest outing on the NES. On the frustration scale, this can equate to throwing your controller across the room at a couple points, typically when you lose a really good weapon, maybe if you die or if you accidentally pick up a lesser weapon. But this game is quite manageable if you know what you're doing. And speaking of knowing what you're doing, let's take a look at the Briggs notes for Friday the 13th. These are the keys to beating this game. First, get the torch early. It's one of the most powerful weapons in the game, and I'm going to show you the fastest track that I'm aware of to pick it up. Number 2, cycle counselors when one gets hurt. We don't want to lose that torch, and we also, more importantly, just want everyone to survive. Number 3, when you're moving around the map, know that left means you're going clockwise, right means you're going counterclockwise. 4, don't jump with the torch. We don't want to replace it with a lesser weapon, which is easy to do. And finally, know your counselors.
It's time to play Getting to Know Your Counselors, Friday the 13th edition. George can't run, George can't jump, and George sure as hell can't row you anywhere, but he can throw like your favorite quarterback of choice. Add it all up and he's completely useless. Poor George. Judging by its expression, no one told him how shit he is.
Loser. C tier.
Mark, the guy you had a crush on in high school no matter who you were. Heck, you probably still do. While he's not the best thrower, he more than makes up for it with skill in running, jumping, and he rows like an angel when you need to get to those late kids fast. It's enough for him to make the S tier and get the Counselor of the Game award. Paul. They definitely did Paul dirty in Friday the 13th. With decent throwing, but being absolute garbage at everything else, he's really the Black George. Or is George the White Paul? Never mind, Paul just died.
C tier.
Laura. 3 of Laura's traits are awful, but you can overlook an awful lot in this game for a fast runner. In fact, with her being as fast as Mark, she's not a bad third-string counselor. Just don't ask her to jump higher than her pathetic 6 feet in the air. Bye, Laura.
A tier.
Debbie. The thing about Debbie is, well, Debbie tries.
C tier.
Chrissy. It looks like Chrissy was out tossing rocks on row day, but swap out those 2 stats and you've got the female Mark, making her an excellent backup counselor should you need her. When are those 2 gonna start dating already? You know their kids would be Jason killing machines.
S tier.
And there you have it, getting to know your Friday the 13th counselor.
Mark rows like an angel. angels even row?
If they're anything like Mark, they do.
Huh. Incidentally, we are going to start off with Mark as we take a look at the controls for Friday the 13th. We can bring up the map with Start. That allows us to change counselors when we're inside a cabin. We can attack with B, jump with A, bring up the menu commands indoors with Select, and make sure you're ducking when you're attacking, at least when you have the rock, because there's an arc to it, which is kind of annoying. We'll talk more about the controls once we start. All right, Jason's starting early, so let's go to our resident boss expert, Gary, as we switch to another counselor, whoever's being attacked right now by going in this cabin and switching. And Gary, how do we take down Jason?
It's Scary Gary's boss beat.
Alright, so the boss in Friday the 13th, not surprisingly, is Jason Voorhees, or the main boss, I should say. So, the tips are going to just kind of evolve throughout the course of the 3 days you have to fight him. So, Jason Voorhees, Phase 1, Day 1. Let's just call it. You want to stay near the middle of the screen to give yourself plenty of time to dodge wherever he comes from, the left or the right. That gives you time to react when you see him coming in for another attack. Hold down and then left or right to dodge. Doesn't matter either way whenever he comes to attack you. He generally does 2 whacks if he's in speed mode. We'll talk more about that in Phase 2 and 3 on the second 2 days. On the last 2 days, I should say, and then just attack Jason after he gets his second attack in, if he's doing one of those double attacks. So make sure he's done attacking, get the attack off. You'll learn the pattern very quickly, and yeah, you gotta do this a whole mess of times, depending on what weapon you have when you see him in the cabins. If you see him on the path, just attack. Chase him to the right. The professor will talk more about it, but yeah. That's how you take down Jason Voorhees in the cabins.
All right, thank you, Gary. We're going to get back to the fast track on getting one of the best weapons in the game. First, come to this cabin, which is on the northwest side of the lake, and you'll find that note in that spot. It's going to tell us to go into the woods, so now, remembering our tips on how to navigate the map, we're going to go left to get into the woods here. Once you're in the woods from the lake, go right, and then up twice through these paths. And once you have this key, make sure you have the key before you come in here. And then in this cabin, I think it's to the right when we come in, yeah, take this note. It's going to tell you that fire will damage Jason the most. And now we can head back to that same cabin where we found the first note. And to get to that, we head right out of that cabin, down, grab the medicine there. Blaze is going to talk more about that. And then right and then down again. That'll get us back outside. And we're going to head back into that exact same cabin we just came out of. This long one here. Go up and then right again. And there is your torch. One of the most powerful weapons in the game. Blaze is going to talk about all the different weapons and the items as well in just a bit. It's just kind of fast-paced action here at the start of the game. So, we're going to head to the cave area now. See it there. This is why it's so important to have a fast counselor, one of the 3, which has good stats in running. By the way, there's only 2 stats for every counselor, or better said, you can be good in something or bad in something. So if you're bad at running, you have that slower speed. If you got the higher gear that Mark, Chrissy, and Laura have, then we can get around a little bit faster. He's beaten up on useless George. So we're going to pass our weapon to George, actually, and switch off by hitting select and doing that. And just have him fight for us, even though he's kind of weak. I feel pretty confident, though. Now you can see how much more damage we're doing with the torch. Blaze is going to have the actual damage breakdown that we get with each weapon. 7 hits is going to make Jason disappear when you're inside the cabin, no matter what weapon you're hitting him with. So it just takes a lot longer if you're using anything but a top-tier weapon. So now we're going to head into the cave since we're here and take down Jason's mom for the first time. Follow this path here. It's kind of hidden if you don't have the flashlight. Make sure you have the key. And Gary?
Alright, Mama Vorhees, Pamela Vorhees, gets my designation as the toughest boss in Friday the 13th. She's more of a handful than her son Jason, which is interesting because she doesn't have any hands, just a disembodied head. But the strategy here, attack repeatedly at the start to get 4 hits in early on her. Then you want to move with her left and right to get your attacks in, and then you just sort of start to anticipate when she'll be attacking you and when it's time to dodge. She kind of does it with a somewhat regular pattern. You can pick up on this as you fight her, but on this first day when you fight her, she's not too much of a handful. Just repeat, you'll take her down.
Thank you very much, Gary. Strictly speaking, we didn't have to fight her on day 1 because the weapon she gives us is worse than the one we have, but, just to show it. So now he's attacking the kids at the lake. We have to protect the 15 kids there. He goes through them 5 at a time. You actually have until the timer hits the 30-second mark before he kills the first kid, so you have a little bit of time to get over there most times, especially if you're Mark, because he can row, and that always got me. Jason somehow simultaneously killing these kids in here while going through the lake with a motor attached to his ass or something. I'm not really sure how that works, but 2 places at once, why not? You'll notice Jason now has a cute little, looks like a novelty toothbrush my dentist used to have, like a big blow-up one, when I was getting cleanings. Doesn't matter, it's just aesthetics, the different weapons that he's carrying. They always do the same amount of damage. So we've been picking up a lot of items. Let's go to our resident items expert, Blaze.
All right, let's talk about the items you'll find in Friday the 13th. First, we have the lighter. Note that this only appears, like a few other items, which just randomly appear on the path sometimes, after you've defeated a few zombies. The actual number can vary depending on your counselor that you're playing as, but just kill some zombies. This will show up, pick it up, and you can light the fireplaces in the large cabins. Secondly, we have the vitamins, which looks more like some sort of liquid, like a bug juice to me, but either way, when you use this in one of the cabins, you can heal 6 points of health for your counselor or the counselor you're healing. And then you have the flashlight, which appears only after you've lit all the fireplaces in the large cabins with the lighter, so you can pick that up to reveal hidden passages like in the cave. Then you have the messages, the notes, which are left in different cabins randomly. This gives tips on where to go next. You can find a tip on sometimes a powerful item. You can pick these up and just kind of follow what they tell you to do. A lot of times they'll lead you somewhere good. Then we have keys. You only need 1, and then once you have it, you can unlock all the doors, like the one to Mama Vorhees' little hideaway in the cave. Very important. And then you have the sweater. Speaking of Mama Vorhees, the second time you take down old Pammy, you get to get the sweater, which halves all damage that you take. Item of the game, if you ask me. Maybe not the weapon, but certainly the item. Grab that sweater.
All right, thank you, Blaze. Yeah, I think we'll do that right now. It is now day 2. We've beaten Jason. You'll find when you have a very powerful weapon and you fight Jason on the path, he tends to go down a lot easier. We'll talk more about that, but let's head back to the cave and fight Mama Vorhees for the second time in this game. She's just a bit faster, but we can still get those early hits off. And then, just keep moving, keep dodging. You're gonna take some hits probably. Her movements become a bit more erratic on day 2, but yeah, once she leaves that sweater, pop that on. It's best to give it to your best counselor. I'm assuming whoever is the one that takes down Mama Vorhees is your best counselor. So he's killing one of our friends right now. I assume we're all friends at least. But the nice thing about when he's attacking one of your friends versus one of the late kids is you can take that timer all the way down to 1 second without anyone being killed. I mean, sure, that kid's going to get roughed up, but, it's not that big of a deal. We're going there to rescue them in time. So I'm going to show you a nice little trick we could do here, because we can fight Jason in the cabin, but it's also a lot easier and faster to fight him on the path. And we can force him outside by switching counselors to someone who's not here, and then going back to the guy we just switched away from, and then head outside, and just magically Jason will appear on the path. And then if we chase him to the right here, sometimes we can catch back up with him. He goes on a very set path. Typically, he only moves left to right, so that's why we can chase him to the right. also, incidentally the direction he just left. And we just keep catching up to him, for a while at least. And if you're wearing the sweater and you've got some medicine, then and a good weapon, this is probably the easiest way to take him down. We'll still show you how to face him in the cabin, in case you want to do it for more glory way or whatever, but no shame in forcing him out with that trick and fighting him here on the path. We have to beat Jason 3 times overall, 3 days in a row. He gets a bit faster each day, making him more difficult to dodge. Again, that's why the path is always nice, because he never changes his strategy out here. Especially if you have a good weapon, it's nice to take him down. But let's get some tips on how to take him down on day 2 with Gary.
Alright, Jason, on day 2, phase 2, we'll call it. It's the same tips as last time, so stay in the middle of the screen and dodging and all that. But you want to dodge a little bit earlier when Jason moves at that full speed. When he hits and that speed switch finds that higher gear, you'll know when he does it, because he'll just start tearing across the screen. So you want to dodge earlier to give yourself time to avoid both of his attacks. When he does this, he'll hit in 2s, he'll hit in pairs. So make sure you only attack at this full speed after the 4th attack. So he'll whack, whack, and then come back really quick, whack, whack. That's when you attack after that 4th attack of his, when he's backing up.
Alright, thank you, Gary, but we still haven't defeated Jason. He's even stronger. It's a nice life lesson. I don't necessarily like applying it to killing kids, but, when life knocks you down, you get back up. Just minus the child killing, or any killing. Not condoned here on Video Games 101. So now that we finally have a moment to catch our breaths, let's go to Blaze and get an idea of how the different weapons stack up.
Alright, now let's talk about the weapons you'll find in Friday the 13th, and I like to grade these based on how many hits it takes to take away 1 meter of health from the man himself, Jason Voorhees. We start out with the lowly rock. It takes 5 hits to take away 1 meter of health from Jason. Do not make this your primary weapon. This will be a very long game. Then you have the dagger, which randomly appears on the screen after you've killed a couple zombies. 4 hits for 1 meter, still not great. Then we have the machete. 3 hits for 1 meter. You can get one from taking down Pamela Vorhees the first time on day 1. And then later on, it spawns randomly, so you could be on the lookout for that. Then we have the axe, which is 2 hits for every meter. We're starting to get somewhere here. And then we have the best weapons in the game. Kind of tied for weapon of the game. You have the torch and the pitchfork. Torch can be found in one of the cabins based on the notes that you get. It's nice because you could throw this on the ground and the flame lingers, which means that zombies will run into it. It's probably my favorite weapon in the game, personally. But then you have the pitchfork if you take down Pamela Vorhees on day 3, which is no small order. Very difficult boss at that point. But if you could take her down, you will get the pitchfork, which goes through zombies. Both of these final weapons does 1 meter of health per hit. It's the fastest way to take down Jason. Make sure you have one of these, and once you do, like the professor said in the Briggs notes, do not jump anymore. The worst thing in the world, literally the worst thing in the world, is to lose one of these in place of a dagger.
He's not wrong about that. Alright, so while we got some time to kill, let's go kill Jason's mom one last time. And while we're doing that, let's get a Fluff fact about this game from Fluff.
As we covered in our class on Rockin' Cats, while most people think of Friday the 13th as an LJN title, LJN held the copyright and publishing rights to the game, but didn't actively make the game themselves. LJN was originally founded in 1970 as a toy company, before it got acquired by media conglomerate MCA in 1985. At this point, LJN's focus turned towards video game licensing and publishing. Essentially, this meant that they would approach the rights holders for popular movies from the last decade or so and strike a deal to make an official video game based on one of those properties. Not being an actual video game developer themselves, LJN then partnered with video game development companies to actually get the games made. One of these developers was the small Japanese video game studio Atlus. While you won't see any mention of it in the game, Atlus was the company that actually made the game. Atlus has gone on to make over 100 games, including the NES gem Rockin' Cats and the very popular Persona series today.
Yeah, love Atlus. Alright, so let's whittle Jason down a bit more before we take him on in the cabin for the final battle, but Fluff, can you give us a little insight as to where the purple sweatsuit comes from?
A lot of people question the decision to put Jason in his now infamous purple sweatsuit when that's not what anyone associates as being Jason's look. Because tracking down the actual people involved in making the game has proven to be so difficult, no definitive answer has ever been offered up. There are plenty of theories which attempt to explain it, from the promotional material that Friday the 13th team had access to, plus the fact that, similar to Mario's trademark red and Link's green outfits, the developers just needed something to make Jason stand out using the NES's limited color palette.
Well, you know what? Whatever the reasoning is, I'm going to go out on a limb and say something crazy and say that I like it. I don't like that he's killing a bunch of kids right now, but this is going to be the last battle, so we'll take him on head on in the cabin with our pitchfork. So let's get some tips now for taking on Jason on the hardest final day. Gary, take us home.
Boss beaters. All right, the final day. Jason is full speed mode this time. He's taken all the coke in Crystal Lake. So we want to use the same tips as last time for the speed mode. And so again, we want to dodge earlier when Jason moves in at full speed. Stay in the middle of the screen and get that first dodge in quickly. This is especially applicable for the second pair, which he does, because again, it's generally all in pairs. He does the 1-2 hit, backs up or moves a bit out of the way, and then comes back really fast for another 2 hits. But it's after that second pair of attacks that he does. That's when you have a split second to get an attack off in. So that's why you want to move ahead of time so you can dodge and get your dodges in and out of the way faster, so you'll be back centered up, ready to attack before he's moved out of position after the final attack in that second pair, just like we're doing here. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Gary. And yes, this is indeed the last time we're going to have to take down Jason, despite the fact that they're leaving it ambiguous here to kind of cover up the fact that this ending is really crappy. But that's okay. We don't play these games for the endings. At least not on the NES, right? They're all pretty bad. Anyway, before we get out of here, let's go out on one final Fluff fact. Fluff, what do you got for us?
Speaking of promotional material, the opening shot of the mask with the knife in it is taken from the promotional poster of Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. You might understandably assume the game was released around the same time as that movie, as a kind of tie-in, similar to the cover of Jaws for the NES, which takes its box art from the then recently released Jaws 4: The Revenge. Despite the nod, not to mention the title Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, there were actually 4 more Friday the 13th movies released after that one, including Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, which was released the same year as this game. I guess Atlas figured New York as a backdrop would be too difficult to animate and program.
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. Thank you very much, Fluff. Excellent work today. Excellent work to all my TAs. That's going to about do it for us here in this Friday the 13th NES walkthrough on Friday the 13th. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to enroll in these classes. We do one of these classes every single week in the same spot. We'd love to have you enrolled. Click that like button too if you don't mind. It really does help us out to make future classes for you. And leave a comment. Are you of a similar mind in that you think this game is underrated, or at the very least doesn't deserve all of the hate that it's gotten over the years? But that's our time for this week. We'll see y'all next week in the same spot right here on Video Games 101. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video, and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you. And check the description of this video to see what song is playing right now.